Thanks for joining me today. We're going to talk about how to complete an ILS landing in the F-4E. Here's why you should probably care about that. When you do a visual landing in the F-4, there's certain things you have to do in advance, like crank the seat up, turn off your roll sats, line up on the runway, do all those things. And with an instrument approach, you have a little bit of an easier time managing the landing because, well, you don't have to change the seat or any of that. You just follow the directions after you set the avionics. So to that end, what you'll do is you'll go to the left side there, set the frequency of your ILS, the intended runway that you want to land on. Do double check that the runway is actually working because depending on the map and the airport and the wind direction, it may not. It just depends on the map and where you're landing at. So double check that. Also check your approach, meaning the altitude you need to be at, how far away you need to be from the runway in order to land it. Each airport has different configurations and publications for that, so you'll want to look those up in advance and try to fly that profile as much as you can. Generally about 5,000 feet, 10 miles away from the runway is about what works. But again, double check your stats before you start. But once you do, we'll just dial in the frequency and then we will continue. I usually try to get the admin done on that before we have to do the rest of the work, which involves setting up some of the other avionics and putting the airplane down, following the glide slope to get to the runway, right? So you don't want to be fiddling with all that stuff when you're trying to fly the airplane down on that glide slope. So anyways, once the initial admin of dialing in the frequency is done, what you'll want to do next is get your airplane set up for the approach to land. And that'll be when you actually have to be a little bit more active with the process. So now that we're getting close to the field, I'm using a TACAN to line up for landing. We'll be coming in to land at Harry Reid International, which in DCS is still called McCarran, its old name. So regardless of which senator I guess you like more, we're just going to continue approach here. Essentially what we're going to do is we're going to wait for the TACAN to be on about 3 o'clock position to the airplane. And then we're going to just turn to line up on the TACAN there. Bear in mind that each airport has a different location for the TACAN, so what you'll want to do is make sure that when you line up on the TACAN, you're not too far off of the runway heading. Some runways have more of a distance between that than others. See me right there, I'm setting the radar altimeter. That's essentially going to be where I make my decision height. The decision height is how far above the ground you are before you make a decision to either continue with the landing or to go around. Once you reach that decision height, you should also have visual of the runway. If you do not, because of conditions or you are not aligned, that's your cue to go missed, which means you put the power on, put the landing gear and flaps up, and try again. So again, we're coming in here. You notice the weather in this particular sortie is not an ILS. It's not, you don't need ILS to land in these conditions, but I do like to practice it when I come back from my sorties, even if it's not necessarily needed, because it just gets the skill down and kind of gets the repetitions in, so that if a circumstance comes up where I really, really need to make an ILS landing somewhere, it's pretty much second nature. So yeah. And for the purposes of this tutorial, the fact that it's cloudy or not doesn't really matter. The mechanics are basically the same. So again, I think the relevance of learning the ILS in this game and in this airplane is, besides general awareness of the F4 and what it can do, it also makes landing a lot easier because, again, you don't have to mess around with this much malarkey with cranking the seat up, doing the visual pass and all that. You just get lined up on your primary navigation aid, dial in your frequency, complete some of the other steps here, and then look out the window, make sure you're lined up, and then put her down. And the good thing about the ILS is it solves your glide slope issue, which is one of the complications with landing the F4 well, because it's a little difficult sometimes to eyeball what your descent angle should be for a given airspeed and position off the runway. Obviously, you want to try to compute that before you start, but sometimes you don't have that luxury, and maybe you have to land someplace you didn't expect or something like that. So when you come in on an ILS, that helps solve your geometry issue a bit. So once you come off the flight director and you're 500 feet or whatever off the runway, and you see you're lined up or you're not lined up and you correct it, then it's pretty much a cinch to manage your power and then bring it in. So right now I'm turning off my switches, turning off the constant wave, turning off the missiles, setting my landing, making sure all that switches are good, turning off my dom switches there. It's not necessary when it comes to landing, but it is a good idea if you use the persistence feature, which is something that Heatblur has built into the F-4E that enables you to save the state of the airplane based on delivery and the tail number that you entered in the mission editor. I happen to like it a lot because one case study, let's say you're trying to complete a mission that involves a cold start. You get halfway through and you find out that your tanker is miscoded or not behaving right. So you jump out, go into the mission editor, fix it. Well, if you set the airplane to hot start, it'll pick up what the airplane was doing before you saved it and exited the first time. So you can essentially pick up right where you left off with the airplane on and active and set the way you did when you did the cold start. So really cool little option there when you use the persistent right there. So turning off the autopilot there, turning off the stability augmentation there to try to get the autopilot, try to clear some of that. Now I'm setting the navigation switches. This is the part that's really important for the ILS. Now turning on the flight director. I dialed in the frequency earlier, and I've set the rotation knob there, the right to ILS. Still have the TACAN on the left, so that way I still have my runway heading on the flight director. But the flight director, mixing up my avionics here, on my compass, the TACAN will be pointing to where the TACAN is, but the flight director, which you see now in the yellow, is pointed to the ILS based on the frequency heading that I picked out there. The frequency heading 055 is something I planned in advance based off of the runway heading that I am landing on. This is information that you'll want to know when you are approaching the runway. You'll also want to confirm that the ILS actually works for the runway that you're landing at, because DCS implementation of ILS is a little inconsistent, so you'll want to check that before you try to punch in the frequency, because otherwise you're going to have some complications. For example, when you line up to land at Harry Reid International, it only works on runway 25 if you have the wind direction coming down the runway. If you don't, then it will just turn off. So ask me how I found that out. So right now we're on speed, just a little fast, about 200 knots. Following the flight director here, doing the requisite rituals to call the tower as I land. It's going to be a good day when ED gets around to revamping the air traffic control, makes it a little realistic. Set my flaps there, landing gear down. Now that we're not that far away from the field. A little low, but this is to be expected. Once you put your flaps and gear down, you're going to have to make some control adjustments here. Those of you who have premium peripherals and HOTAS, this will be a bit easier. If you're flying with more value-conscious equipment like a Thrustmaster or SATEC, something like that, this is going to be a tricky step, because you'll have to hold that glide slope as you come in, hold your speed, but your peripherals are probably not going to be precise enough to let you do that in the F4. So what I would suggest then, if you're flying with those kind of equipment, is to just fly a little bit fast. Don't try to hold on speed as precisely, because your peripherals just aren't going to let you do that. You'll need to fly a bit fast, maybe allow for maybe just be a little bit high on your flight director. Don't try to chase it, just approach a little bit high, and you'll still make it work. Now that we hit our decision height, radar altimeter kicked in there, so we obviously can see the runway. If I couldn't see the runway at this point, I would go around, but yeah, we're just a little bit fast, but that's fine. We're going to bring the nose up here, put the airplane down right about here. And there we go. Simple as that. So it seems a little overwhelming the first few times you do it if you're used to like having a HUD and some of the more sophisticated computerized stuff in the newer modules. But once you practice a little bit and get the hang of it, using the analog ILS here will become pretty much second nature. Again, I just do this even if the weather is good, just to maintain, some familiarity with the process in case I play a campaign or get into a server that has some fog or some weather in it. Because yeah, I don't want to be that cringeante player that can't land his airplane. He can shoot down 4 or 5 people, but he can't land his airplane if there's fog. That's just not a place I want to be as a player of any air combat sim. So thank you all for tuning in. Let me know what you thought of the tutorial in the comments section below. If you liked this video or my other content, feel free to hit the like and subscribe buttons, and we will catch you in the next video.